Yo, my friends, on today's episode we have another legend. Duane shoots toys. Enjoy.
I grew up such a fan of sports memorabilia and sports cards, and I'm really excited that this show is both going to highlight that as well as the awesome entrepreneurs that make it all possible. Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into another episode of Talking Shop. Today we have another very, very special guest, Duane Perera. Welcome to the show, my friend. Duane shoots toys.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
So first things first, I want to ask, because this isn't necessarily a field that many kids, like all of our fields, grow up thinking that they can do. At what point did this vision start to become a reality for you?
This is something that I discovered fairly recently. Before I got into it, I was actually more into photography. And I loved travel photography, landscape photography, that kind of stuff. And one day I was just on YouTube, just looking around, trying to learn how to use my camera and learn about editing software. And I just randomly stumbled across this video of someone who was taking photos of model cars. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, this is really cool. And I just kept on digging deeper and deeper and eventually found this entire community of action figure photographers on Instagram. And like from the moment I saw it, I was instantly hooked. I knew I had to be doing it. And this wasn't that long ago. It was like 2018, beginning of 2018. So like just over 2.5 years. And it just kind of picked up some figures, got my camera and just started rolling with it.
That's amazing. So how, if you have a background in photography, how did you begin to teach yourself? Did you look at, was YouTube your biggest asset? How does somebody learn to do that?
Yeah, like I was all over YouTube, like just looking up each and every tutorial I could find. And not only the photography side of things, but just the crafting. Like a lot of my photos involve a lot of handcrafted elements, the background dioramas and all that, and the props and accessories. So that's what I really needed to focus my time on learning, just how to craft these little items and stuff. So I was just going heavy on YouTube and watching all these crafting tutorials primarily.
That's amazing. So you created your page in March of 2018. I know that off the top of my head. And how do you try to kind of, because my favorite thing about you is that you merge kind of the culture side of things with the toy side of things. Not that many people are making like, Cactus Jack Jordan 6s with the Reese's Puff cereal box mini. How is that something that you consciously think about to build an audience, or is it just kind of what you're passionate about?
Yeah, like I really inject my own passions and interests into my work. A lot of my photos revolve around nostalgia. So I was born in the early 80s, and I have a lot of fond memories from the 80s and 90s. So I will often just think about those favorite moments in my childhood, and I will try to recreate them in photo form. And then also at the same time, I love sneaker culture today and like sports and hip hop and video games and all these things. So it's just drawing upon my own personal interests and then just injecting them and kind of fusing them with superheroes and other kind of nerd culture characters.
Yeah, nerd, aka the best culture.
Yeah.
I want to talk about kind of the process of creating a scene, because it's one thing to, build these things, but it's, you can showcase them in a really wrong way if it's not, obviously photographed right. Thankfully, you have a photography background. How do you look at photographing these things, and what are kind of the key things you look at?
I, I like to think I have a keen eye for detail. So for me, it's all in the little details in the background accessories and props. That's my primary concern when I'm creating a diorama. And often I will try to I'll use like a reference photo, for example. I'll find a cool shot that I see online, and maybe I'll just use that as inspiration to set up my scene. And then I'll just start adding all these little details, trying to make it look realistic. For example, if I'm doing a shot with some Jordan sneakers, I'm going to be, I'll make the box, right? And I'm going to try to make the box have all the little labels and insignias and everything on there, and make it as detailed as possible. And I just do that same thing to all the other elements within the scene, and just try to focus on trying to create that sense of realism.
That's great. And I have an unpopular belief, but normally most of the episodes so far for this show have been around sports cards. But I do have a belief, and I'm sure, you would probably share this by default, but that, the photo of the card actually has an impact on what it will sell for.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're into sports cards. You're probably familiar with the Project 2020
Of
by
course.
Topps. Yeah, so that's like an art card, right? And those cards are really popular because of the art and the images and all that on the card. And definitely the photo is a big selling point, right?
Totally. So for an action figure, how long does it take to actually make, photograph, the whole process from idea inception to Instagram feed?
So the action figures that I use, they're primarily figures that I buy.
Got
I
it.
have made a few of my own. Like I recently made a Baby Yoda. I just got a 3D printer recently, so I'm experimenting with that and trying to
Okay.
eventually get to the point where I'm crafting all my own stuff, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a Spiderman figure right here, right? So this is one of the figures that I typically work with. And so once I have an idea in my mind, the first thing I'll do is work on building the diorama. And depending on how complex it is, it could take from a couple of days to 4 or 5 days. On average, I'd say each one of my scenes from start to finish will take about 3.5, 4 days.
And at any given time, do you have a bunch of these, dioramas and sets just laying all over? Like you got Jordan's locker room over here, and you got like SpongeBob's home over there, and then you got like Travis Scott's crib over. Like, is that usually the scene at your place?
Well, the thing is, I live in a tiny apartment, right? So I don't have room to keep all of this stuff.
But they are pretty small.
They are small, but like when I've done a couple of hundred photos at this point, right? So
Yeah.
I don't have room for all that. I try to build my dioramas so they're kind of disassemblable, like temporary in nature. So a lot of the backdrops are actually made out of foam board and paper. So I'll build the diorama, and then after I've taken the photo, I'll disassemble it, and then some items I'll keep for future use, but other ones I'll just recycle or get rid of. So at the moment I don't have a lot of assembled dioramas, but I have a lot of small bits and pieces, like I have tons of shoe boxes, like mini shoe boxes and things like that, right? But yeah, for the most part, I disassemble them after I've done taking the shot.
So cool. So if you had unlimited budget, unlimited resource, unlimited space, what would you want to do? Would you want to have like a million different dioramas just like in a factory? Like, what is your dream artistic scenario?
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, just to have a big space where I could store everything permanently, and instead of having to work with these temporary disposable dioramas, it would be great to make higher quality long-term display pieces in sort of like a museum or something like that. That would be amazing. And
The Duane Museum.
yeah, and I'd love to just, I mean, right now pretty much all my income goes towards buying new action figures, toys, and all that kind of stuff.
That's the
So
way to do it, though. Just reinvest everything in yourself.
yeah. So I mean, unlimited budget would be kind of crazy for me. I'd be buying all kinds of stuff for
Have
sure.
you ever sold anything?
Sold anything like
Made something for someone?
so in the past, I've done a lot of different dioramas, and I generally don't sell them because of the fact that they're disposable, right?
Yeah.
They're made of flimsy materials. But there was one Bruce Lee. I did a photo with Bruce Lee and sort of a Wu-Tang clan setup, And that one, like someone contacted me right away before I even had a chance to dispose of the diorama, and they said they wanted it. So I was like, okay, I'll send it to you. But at this point, I haven't really done too much custom work, but yeah.
That would be interesting though, or even just like prints of some of the stuff would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I've got prints online for sure. Like
Got
that
it.
kind of stuff is easier to deal with for sure.
Totally. Who are some of your favorite uh, people in kind of this world on social? Who have you taken some influence from, or who do you like some of the different or similar work that they're doing?
Yeah, there's actually a pretty big community of toy photographers, and everyone's got their own little style. Some people focus on just really hardcore comic book related themes, and then other people will focus on sports and stuff. So a couple of names that come to mind are Plastic Action, Jax Navarro. He does a lot of basketball themed
Cool.
shots. And
Cool.
then, yeah, another guy, Nose Rain, he does some really cool, Richie, he does a bunch of cool, just nerdy crossover stuff along with basketball stuff as well.
That's awesome. What are some of those you talked about, like some of the childhood memories and stuff like that that you pull from? What are some of like the top of the tier, like most cherished childhood memories that you like bring into this work now?
Yeah, so so my main video game system that I grew up on was the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Okay.
So I have so many memories playing games on that system, like Mike Tyson's Punch Out and Ninja Turtles and all those classic games. So I love incorporating the video game aspect into my photography. Music, there's a lot of hip hop references. Like I listen to a lot of 90s hip hop. So I got references to Tupac and Snoop and all that. So those are really, really fun to inject. And especially when you like mash them up, like you take something related to hip hop and then you know, cross over with like a video game character or like a superhero, right? Those are the kind of things I really love doing.
I love it. Do you have any of your favorite action figures nearby? I know you
Yeah, so I got the Spider-Man. This is so this one is it's about 12 inches tall, and I just recently used that in my most recent post. I've got Michael Jordan here, dressed up in the
very
warm-up gear.
nice.
Yeah, I've got a few basketball ones like LeBron and Kobe too. This one's a little bit bigger. This is a Ninja Turtles figure. This is 18 inches.
Wow.
So when you're working with a figure like this, everything's on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
So the plus side is that it's easier to put more detail into the shot, but at the same time, like you're working with a lot larger diorama.
Yeah, everything you do, you need to spend 5 times as much on.
Yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, but my favorite thing is building these like little accessories, like they got the mini Reese Puff cereal box, and
That's so sick.
this
How do you
box.
do that? What?
This is actually like, boxes are really easy to make. You just find pictures of the actual box
Oh,
and
and you
then
just print it on?
yeah, and then
Wow.
I haven't assembled these fully yet, but I got some little Supreme cookies, like Oreo cookies,
Yeah.
tiny ones,
Are
and
those
I got a whole
plastic
bunch.
or real?
These are plastic, so these are 3D printed.
You 3D printed them.
Yeah, all you can. I mean, I just found a 3D printed file online, like a model, and then I just printed them, and then I got a whole bunch of these. I'm planning to do a photo with these sometime soon.
That's so
And
sick.
yeah, and yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff. So the sneakers, I got some here. I don't make the sneakers myself. I plan to eventually with the 3D printing. Uh, but here's an example. I got a Jordan 4 here, and I
That's
got a whole bunch.
crazy.
Yeah, Yeezys. So these ones, they're made in Asia. So I just get them sent over and I incorporate them into my photography. But um, eventually, as I learn 3D modeling, I definitely want to start printing my own designs and just doing everything myself. I just love the crafting element of things.
Do you think that at any point in time, 3D printing is going to be so mainstream, widespread that a lot of people are just going to be able to 3D print like toys and stuff in their own homes?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. 100%. Like
Really?
I think that's, I don't know what the timeline's going to be like, whether that's going to be, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, but like definitely. I can see a point in the future where everyone's printing all their own everything, like, accessories or whatever it is they need, right? It's come a long way, and it's actually right now a lot more affordable to get into than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. um,
Interesting.
but yeah, just imagine a world where you can print anything you want, right? I think it's on the way.
What would you buy? You would be buying like the file to print it?
Yeah,
Created
yeah,
it?
exactly, that's how it works. So right now, um, people will use 3D modeling software to create a model, and then they'll turn that into a file and share it online. So I guess, yeah, you buy like a 3D file and then download it and print it out. Just
That's so,
imagine, like, it's unlimited possibilities, right?
but then again, it's not like I can't buy a pair of Yeezys and then give you a pair of Yeezys and also keep one myself. But if it's a file, I can.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That gets super interesting. How do you feel about like the collectible space in general? I have to ask, like, have you seen an increase in demand? Because I know in like the sports collectible space, just in the last year, it's all gone up like crazy. A, have you seen that yourself? And B, have you seen that in kind of like the toy space as well? Because I've never even talked about it with anybody.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane. Well, going back to sports cards, one of the big reasons that it's become so big is the fact that they're limiting these print runs, right? Like if you
Mm,
go back to like the 90s, the junk wax era, they're mass printing these sports cards, right? So a lot of those cards are worthless, but now these new cards are limited, right? They only do like 50 of a certain card, or a 200 or whatever, right? So the same kind of thing happens in the toy world. A lot of these higher end toys, they'll just make a limited number of them, and then they'll release them, and then once they're out, that's it, right? So people are snatching them up, and then a lot of these will go up in value, right? You'll buy something, and then 2-3 years down the road, you go on eBay and it's selling for twice the price, right? So it's the same kind of, it's similar to sports world for sure.
so crazy. Now,
Yeah.
I wonder, like, I want to see this happen because it would be so much cooler if, like, a lot of the toys that I see online that sell well are all like the vintage ones. But why doesn't uh, Panini start creating one of 10 action figures or like prints of these figures or of these people that are limited in the same way, maybe even signed? Like, they have this access. I just wish they would like dive into your world with that as well, or
Yeah.
anybody would for that matter. Does anybody?
Yeah, I'm sure like you'll see people like the designer toy creators like Cause and people like that, right? They'll make a
True.
limited number of those toys, and then people just go nuts over them. And then once they're gone, like you have to pay a premium to get them at that point, right? So it's happening for sure. And like I said before, you're seeing it in the toy world as well. It's just generally like the higher end figures that are going for that. Like the Spider-Man, for example, this is about $300 new. This is like a pretty expensive.
Really?
Yeah, because these
When's
these
it
figures are
from?
really. What's that?
When's it from?
So this was a few years old, like whenever the second Spider-Man movie came out, Far From Home. Um, but no, like the retail price brand new was around that much, so it's still at least that much. So these figures are really highly detailed. Like if you look at them, they look lifelike, right? And a lot of those, like the Michael Jordan figures and stuff like that, they're pretty expensive to buy brand new. But the good thing is that they hold their value. So I look at it as like an investment. I'm willing to spend $300 on an action figure because I know if I take good care of it, 2-3 years down the line, it's still going to be worth at least that amount, right? So it's like sports cards in the same way.
That's a great point. And then I wonder, like sports cards, I know you mentioned Cause. I'd love to touch on that briefly. What have you seen kind of the impact of that, influx into the space being? Because I've seen all like the big toys and the small guys. What has the impact been on that on the whole industry?
On the toy industry,
Toy
or
industry, yeah.
well, I don't know. It's interesting because it is bringing new people into it. Because like people that are going to buy a cause toy are generally into that, like the streetwear culture and sneakers and I guess hype beast culture, right? And they may not necessarily normally be into the action figure scene, right? So it's cool because it's bringing those people into it, and then maybe once they buy those figures, they're going to start looking more into some of the traditional comic book characters and some of the other offerings by companies like Hot Toys that makes this the Spider-Man figure.
Cool. I want to ask now, what advice would you give yourself when you first started out on Instagram as far as beginning on social media? What advice would you give yourself to help you with social?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't think I would have done too many things differently. Um, I guess one of the things would be not to worry too much about how many likes and comments and all that you're getting. I think that was a concern of mine, and like especially in the beginning, right? I'm thinking, oh man, this photo is it must be bad because it only got half as many likes as my last photo. But that's not necessarily the case, right? Art is subjective, and also there's all these other factors that come into play, right? Like the Instagram algorithm. Sometimes it'll share certain photos more than other photos for whatever reason, right? So I guess I would say tell myself not to get down on myself and not to worry too much about the vanity metrics of likes and comments and all that, and just keep cranking out material and sharing as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for anybody, especially those younger who are watching. Like it's crazy, and I always use this as an example, but your post could literally have done better because the algorithm just works on accumulating all of the individual analytics. So like shares, saves, likes, comments, how long you watched, how long you stood on the post.
Yeah,
So your post could theoretically do well because people shared it because of how bad it was.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And then the post that was great, people didn't.
yeah,
Like that. You
yeah.
just gotta do your thing, and you gotta do it consistently. And I think obviously you've done that to an extreme, but that's huge.
Yeah. And another thing is also, I think I didn't start doing this until recently, but I think in the beginning it would have been good if I spent more time documenting my process. I've been doing that more recently now, showing behind the scenes video clips and in my Instagram stories and stuff. But in the beginning, I didn't do that as much. And I think once I started doing that, people got a much greater appreciation for what I do because they, were able to understand exactly what they were looking at. One thing is that I think the behind the scenes is just as important as the finished product because it just helps put everything together.
No, that's super smart, and it makes sense. Last question here. What advice would you give our viewers who kind of after watching this episode saw, you talk everything about toys and everything that you do? Maybe some people wanna kind of dive into this world. What would your best advice be for them?
I think one of the issues that people run into when they're first getting started is that they get too wrapped up in the equipment. Like, oh, what kind of camera do I need? What kind of lighting do I need? What kind of figures do I need? All that kind of stuff. That's not that important when you're first starting out. The important thing is just to get whatever figure you can. You can even use your cell phone when you're taking these pictures in the beginning. The important thing is just to practice, like just do it over and over and over again and try to improve upon your techniques. And then once you get to the point where you can start seeing the benefits of a nicer camera, then you invest in that point. But just practice. And also there's a great community online, especially on Instagram. I would say network as much as possible with those guys and get some tips from them, strategies. A lot of these people will show behind the scenes content, so you can learn from watching that as well.
I think that's great advice. Well, I appreciate you coming on. This has been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you best?
Yeah, you can find me at Duane Shoots Toys. That's Duane Shoots Toys. I'm on so many platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. and DuaneShootstoys.com.
Amazing. Everybody check them out. See you next time. Peace.
Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe for more Talking Shop. Without any further ado, see you next time. Peace.